guess the first thing we have to do, we do have to approve agenda first, don't we? Okay, so our first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Did everyone have a chance to look that over?
Yep.
Now we do have a change, a little bit, I guess, of a change we're going to do. Mayor Staley's here and he wants to just take a moment, so we'll kind of add that into the agenda as the first item on the agenda, so after the approval. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
And I'll second it.
So Mark did the first, Dick did the second. Andy, do you want to start us on a vote?
Sure. Palmer, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Dick,
Saunders, aye.
and Mark?
Hauser, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you, thank you. And we will turn the time over to Mayor Staley with some exciting news, I guess. We don't know what it is.
Well, Mr. Chair, board members, thank you for giving me just a moment of personal privilege at your meeting. I want you to know how much I appreciate your service, and you're doing an excellent job. This is one of those boards where your expertise and experience really come into play, and that also goes for Andy and Councilman Coates and their dedication. I presented this the other night to a group of residents in Coral Canyon, but the person that this certificate is for wasn't there that evening, but he is here this evening. And so I wanted to take the opportunity in a public forum and with his peers to just present this certificate of appreciation to Dick Saunders. And I'll just read this. This certificate is given to Dick Saunders for his years of exemplary service on the Washington City Power Board. Washington City and its residents have benefited greatly from Dick's thoughtful insight, wise judgment, and expertise. Now, what this is not, and we had a good conversation about this on the phone, but this is not saying goodbye to Dick. This is saying, to the extent that you can serve and continue to be a part of it, we want you to. But I wanted to make sure that we recognized you, and if and when that time comes that you feel like we need to make that change, I will begrudgingly do that. But I just wanted to thank you and express my appreciation for our friendship, for your service, you and Laurie. And I think at some point these are the seats. I don't know how the city manager got in your seat tonight, Dick, when you're not on the board. But anyway, I just wanted to give you this certificate of appreciation.
Thank you. And we'll keep going on as long as we can keep going on.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Congratulations, Dick. We do appreciate everybody, and we have a certificate for all their experience, but we do appreciate everything you've done and everything our employees do for us too, for the city and their efforts that they put up for us. So, all righty, we'll continue on with the agenda. The next item on the agenda, number 2, is the approval of the minutes. Everyone get a chance to look those over, and are there any questions? Questions, comments, concerns?
Go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Todd did the first, Mark did the second. So, Dick, would you start us on a vote?
Saunders, aye.
And Andy, would you give us a vote?
Palmer, aye.
And Mark?
Hauser, aye.
And Todd?
Sorry.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you, thank you. The next item is regular business, our operations report and generation update, and we'll turn the time over to Rick.
Thank you. Should be a pretty quick meeting. We don't have any earth-shattering thing to really go over. But just to give you an update of where the department is, what's going on at UAMP, so you can hopefully stay up to speed on what's going on. So first item to report is the City Council on February 12th approved we had the public hearing and there was no comments. And they approved the update to the impact fees, and they will go into effect on June 1st. So there's, I think, a 90-day requirement, and that actually worked out like 105 days or something like that. So it's a little over the 90 days. Since Donna and Wayne retired, we've been running a bit short. We're doing a little reorganization too, and added a position, and we've been fortunate in the last week. We have a young man by the name of Vincent who's gonna, he started last Thursday, will be our inventory and Blue Stake, and then hopefully move him into a meter apprenticeship. Another lineman started on yesterday, who will mainly do services and work with contractors as new development. And then the new position is the assistant director, and Scott Hughes will start on March 17th. So we went from being understaffed to fully staffed in about a 2-week period. So we're pretty excited about that. And they're all really good. Seem to be fitted in well, and we're excited to see what the new blood brings, because that's about 20% of our labor force we just improved on. So I think we talked about it last month. We've got the budget in. Jeremy is working on it with Brian, and we'll present it to the council shortly. But the large projects there are continuing AMI and the Grapevine transmission lines and the Grapevine substation. So they're all kind of ongoing projects that will carry over into next fiscal year. And if you haven't noticed driving around town, growth still remains strong. Lots of apartments and other buildings going up. Lots of things coming in through staff developers. Our February peak was 19.2 megawatts, which was the highest February peak that we've had by just a few kilowatts. 2023 was like 50 kilowatts less, so about the same as 2 years ago. On the generation side of things, they did a short exercise run in February. And then on Monday, Wheeler will be here to do some preliminary emissions testing, kind of tuning the engines for every 3 years, we have to have an outfit come in, and they do a detailed emission evaluation. It takes usually 2 days to get through it with the 3 engines that we have to do every 3 years and report back to the Department of Air Quality. So this is that 3rd year, and they'll be here, I believe it's the middle of next month, to do that. On the Grapevine substation project, the steel was awarded to Stoddard Steel. We got really good pricing there, and the lead time was only like 8 weeks. So I think we were able to sneak it in before the tariffs do whatever they're gonna do to steel pricing. So that was good. We had good timing there. And then also on that project, the foundations, ground grid, and control building bid package is out to bid. We have the pre-bid next Monday with the bids due, I think it's March 27th. So, and the main driving force, or the key date we have to hit there, is the transformer is supposed to arrive late June to mid-July. We need to have that transformer pad built ahead of time of that, and so that's in their contract. They have to meet that one, and the rest we have pretty good flexibility. Kind of a cousin on the transmission line, the steel poles were awarded to a company called CHM. They're from back east. They had good lead time. In fact, that could be a bit of a challenge for us, finding a place to put them temporarily while but that's a good problem to have instead of not having them. So we'll take that and work with that. So we've got most of the major stuff, now we've got to start moving into the smaller, the wire, the insulators, the bus work and the sub. We've got to get that stuff on order. So that'll be the next one there. On the AMI project, we're making some good progress there. The DCUs are installed and activated. On the 3-phase meters, they've had some trouble getting the profile, the data profile. It'll log the usage every 15 minutes, and they're still working out some quirks on that. The single-phase meters that will log the data every hour, they seem to be functioning. And we received the first 450 meters last week of the single-phase variety, which is good. However, during that process, it was determined in order to get the interface between billing and the AMI vendor working like it needs to be, we needed to upgrade the utility software. And so that probably is going to delay things a month or two in there while we get that conversion done and then interface with the AMI software. So I think it'll be good overall. It's just a little different hiccup that we hadn't anticipated up front on that. So, but we're making progress there, and that's the biggest hurdle, if you will, right now, is getting the data from the meter reading system to the billing and from the billing back and forth. So anybody that's dealt with software can probably appreciate that fun. So. On the GIS utility network project, that's basically done for the most part. The crews are now have access to it on their iPads. Maybe at the next meeting, which will actually be in 2 months, I might have Tyler come and kind of show you a demo of what that's doing. It seems to be working there. Dale with the city and Public Works still needs to do some work so we can see it on our desktop type computers, but he's working on that. The SCADA upgrade that we did is basically done, except for physically getting the server that's right now over in the IT building down in the basement here. And we had to run some new circuits and stuff, and that's installed. We just need to coordinate that with that department to get it physically moved. So it's behind a UPS and the generator as well, which we don't have over at the other building. I don't have a lot of pictures. Oh, I gotta share my screen. So you'll notice over the next couple of weeks, there'll be crews working on along Telegraph. We're reconductoring this bottom circuit called the underbuild. And this particular pole, we originally hadn't planned on changing it out, and the crews started looking, and there was a pole band placed about 3 feet above, and got talking to some older timers, and apparently it had gotten hit by a car. And they'd put that on temporarily
3 years ago.
It's been over 7. I know that because it hadn't happened since I've been here. But anyway, we decided to change it out, and it's a good thing we did. When they went to lift the old pole out, it broke off about 2 feet below the ground. So fortunately, there's a line angle you can see, pulls it that way, and guys, so that's, I guess, what was keeping it up. So it was a good find and a good change out. They've been working on, smaller projects, replacing poles. They did some over where we had to increase the height over a pole that was going in a backyard and stuff like that. On the solar side of things, we had 5 applications in February. The trend continues that of those 5, 3 of them were additions to existing systems. So there's not as many new coming in, but there's a fair number of people augmenting existing systems, so. This is the graphs we've been showing lately on our cost per kilowatt hour. And if you look over here, there's a little lime green. So this 2025, so that's January. So the cost for January was just a little over 8 cents, which is slightly better than the 8.6 we had last year. So that translates into the red dot down here for the PCA. And if you look up here, it even went down slightly more than last. So we're about a 1 cent and 3/4 right now. And I expect it to kind of stay in that range. It'll fluctuate up and down. From what I'm seeing, we're seeing on pricing compared to last year. And really it's the delta between this year and last year that will make that go up or down. So that's good. That's really good. And this was the load we already talked about. Again, it's in the upper for these 2 months of previous years. And then our average usage for residential customer was actually for February, one of the lower ones that we've had for quite a few years. Again, that's attributed to milder temperatures, and I think on an average basis, we're getting more apartments and smaller users, so that's gonna tend to pull the average usage down, so. Any questions on those graphs? Probably need to start taking a few of those colors off, but. Couple other interesting things that happened this last month. This was a couple of the guys were doing training for the journey or apprentice lineman. This was on the freeway and a big rock bounced down the road. And fortunately, it stayed low. You know, if that would have been higher. So this was on the freeway where this happened. Rachel's been working on the insurance, and I think our insurance finally tracked down the person. But just that, believe it or not, it's about, what was it, just under $4,000 of damage. So.
That's a big rock.
But yeah, it's about 6 inches in diameter, and so they're, like I said, I'm just glad it was just that and didn't bounce up higher and come through the windshield or something like that. And then the other interesting thing we had, and this was good because the, I'm going to say pilot called. This is up in the habitat area. See this wire that got beat up? Well, it was from a drone. And they said it's about 11 feet in diameter, and so they were spraying herbicides up there for fire breaks and hit one of our lines and had to replace a few feet of it and put a splice on both sides. So again, we don't patrol that line super often, so I give them credit. They hit it and they called, and was able to, yeah. Yeah, they said the drone's about 11 feet in diameter, so it's not just your little house one.
So who was spraying? Was it
Something
Washington
with the
County?
habitat, I guess, because it's up in the habitat area. Yeah, it's some sort of fire break they're trying to do, so. So anyway, that was,
They were hunting turtles with bow and arrows.
it was a bit unusual. I don't think we've had a drone, because, yeah, I was like, geez, that's the size of the road. So yeah, it's a big one. So some interesting things, not in a good way on a couple of those. So actually, I guess all three of them. Generally, outage-wise, we did well last month with the exception of the one on February 10th. The east part of town was out for about 5 minutes. And there was an operation up at the St. George sub that's operated by Rocky Mountain on one of the UAMPS lines. And when they closed that one in, for some reason, the line that feeds out to Purgatory tripped when it wasn't supposed to. And so that took out 2 of our subs, Olahurk and Laverk, and all the way out to Springdale, Colorado City. That was all out for that about 4 to 5 minute period. They've since reported back they found a miscoordination and have that corrected. So
Was there something, an outage with Starlink or whatever the Elon Musk thing is that went by
not
a
that
month or
I'm
so
aware of.
ago? We went out and when I looked it up online, it said something to do with that. Same time that had flown over. But
Yeah,
no one else had experienced that, huh?
Yeah, this wouldn't have been related to that I'm aware of, so. So anyway, any questions? That's just kind of the general local, so you'll see the crews on Telegraph in the next couple weeks changing out that wire. So they'll go through and put orange arms on the existing ones, move out the old wire, and so it's still in operation, and then they'll pull the new wire in the middle. So it's kind of an interesting process to watch them do that, so. And like I say, it's all, the majority of it will be done energized, so. Shouldn't have any outages. Shifting on to UAMPS, I've got this agenda and I think Rachel sent this out to you. This is for the UAMPS toolkit that will be April 16th at the, is it the Ramada? Hilton Gardens, yeah, right north of the Dixie Center. If you're able to make it, I think that would be really helpful. There's no cost, but they would like you to, it says Hilton Garden on the bottom, I needed to. The only reason, main reason for the registration, just so they have enough space and snacks and stuff like that for you. But there are some good topics in there, like the resource or the extended day ahead market that in true acronym form is referred to as EDAM. The resource adequacy is kind of tied in with that. And then again, more EDAM and other issues. So those are going to be important topics that are on the near-term horizon, probably within a year. And it's going to affect how we schedule, how we procure resources. The days of being short going into days are kind of gone. That we're going to have to be the day ahead. We have to know where our resources are coming from. We can't just let it ride on the market. So that'll be good. The board's heard about it for a while, and it's still confusing and challenging to understand. So the more you can get exposed to that, I would recommend it if you're able to do that. So, and kind of a cousin to that, I just got an email today. It was a save the date. So August 17th through 19th will be the UAMPS member conference. And that will be in Olympic Valley, formerly known as Squaw Valley. So it's up there just a little bit west of Tahoe. So kind of keep those dates open if you can. We'd love to have you come out there. I know a couple of you went out there last time. It was like 4 years ago. And then he said the official notification would be sent out in mid-May, so it's mostly just to kind of block those out if you're able to. Last week, I was able to go back to Washington DC as part of the APPA legislative rally, which is all the APPA members from across the country have a little conference there, and then we basically go lobby on the Hill, representatives from whatever state you're from. And we were able to meet with all 4 of our congressional representatives and both senators, anywhere from a half hour to 10 minutes, depending on, they had some votes going on, so some of them had to kind of say hi and leave, but it was good. Some of the things that we brought up, they said, yeah, we can work on that, and other things they said, don't count on that. One of them being, I think I've reported, we were approved for a grant to redo part of the Uri area. All the grants that were associated with the IRA are now on hold. So it's probably doubtful that we'll see that money. So that's kind of put on the shelf until we know for sure where that's at there. So, but it was interesting to see the different representatives and talk to them in person, and remains to be seen how, if anybody listened to us or not, but I guess you gotta try. And it's always good to, what? Well, yeah, sorry, that's the pessimist in me, but yeah, anyway. So one of the main efforts at UAMPS in general, and I'll touch on some of the projects, is getting new resources online. It's not just us that needs them with this EDAM and other things coming on. UAMPS as a whole needs more resources. So for the Central St. George project, which is the local 138 kV system, it looks like Rocky Mountain, Dixie, UAMPS, and St. George we're on track to loop the system, probably in June timeframe. I think it's June 1st that they're shooting for. And what that basically will mean is nobody's probably going to know the difference, other than like that outage that happened on February 4th or 10th. If that were to occur, nobody would be out of power if the system was looped, because there's always 2 paths. And so any one segment can go out and everything else stays up and going on the 138 system. Now, if it's on R69, that's a different story, but the whole goal is to improve reliability to the area. So Rocky Mountain did report that they have the next major piece of equipment that will go in the St. George sub. It's a 345,000 volt to 138,000 volt transformer at the St. George sub, that it's been ordered, and their target in-service date is in 2027. So let's see, we've already talked about the IRA grant. The state legislature has been active as well in the energy side of things. Their UAMPS is closely monitoring a couple of the bills. One of them is kind of targeted to large loads, they call it, which really means data centers, and giving them some latitude that they may not have otherwise. So the concern we would have is there's limited transmission capacity already in the state. Somebody with really deep pockets, can they come in and basically buy that up and leave us that's been here for years, out in the cold a bit? So it's a challenge no matter what legislature you're working with. So the UAMPS is doing a really good job of staying on top. In fact, I got an email a couple hours ago that they were able to change some of the concerning language in one of the bills at the Utah level. So that was good. Most of the time, the sponsors are responsive to suggestions to their bills and the language. So the good news is, I think it ends in 3 days. So hopefully until they reconvene, they can't do much in the middle. So we'll keep an eye on that. The different projects have all been running well. The Payson Nebo project runs great. Pretty much has been running 24/7 for a couple months now. The Veo, it has its challenges this last year, most of them due to it can only run when Kern River is compressing their gas. So if they don't compress, we don't get the waste heat to generate power from. The solar projects, all 3 of them are doing well. The capacity factor this time of year, as you'd expect, was lower than during the summer. There's not as much daylight hours. The sun angle isn't quite as good, so their output goes down this time of year and comes back up. So the Millard County project, they basically have the site control, all the agreements with the landowner in place for purchase of that property. They're doing the Alta survey, and they sent an RFQ out for an owner's engineer that was due on February 21st. I haven't heard back of, I think they're obviously probably in the process of evaluating that, and we'll get an owner's engineer on board shortly. The Horse Butte 2 wind up in Idaho is kind of on hold because we can't even get in for transmission access with BPA until January of 27 to even ask what it would take to connect that. Uinta wind, which is in Wyoming, has similar transmission problems. There's actually a common theme between, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects. Every single one of them has some level of transmission access challenges. And so UAMPS has focused really hard on getting a clear understanding of, what's it gonna take to connect that at that particular location, and will it go through? On one of the geothermal projects, they identified a couple lines that would need to be built, but they're not even in their plan. And that'll probably take 5-6 years before those components get built. So therefore, it affects the timing of our project. So that's the one of the biggest challenges, I think, in all of these. The Power County one in Idaho, St. George actually increased their subscription, but we're still just a little bit short on what we need to get to that 85% that we talked about to formally form the project. So UAMPS is working with UMPA and other utilities to fill that hole. And hopefully before too long, we'll be able to formally organize that project and move forward with it. They are still working on that one to get site control. So once that happens, we can move forward with the other studies. Because that's one of the requirements to submit the transmission stuff, is you have to demonstrate you have a project site instead of just a pie in the sky thing. So they're working on those. Again, there's the geothermal Cove Fort project. I think it's just it's north of Beaver. Again, working on the transmission interconnect requirements with Rocky Mountain. The Fremont Solar, which seemed to be the most promising, which is by Parawan, add that a 7th project, that we can do it, but it's on non-firm transmission. So what that would mean, if we went ahead, if Rocky Mountain were to cut the schedule on that line, we'd still have to pay for the power, but we wouldn't get it. And so that's kind of a risky scenario. So until we can get firm transmission, and it looks like that would be clear out to 2030 before that can be secured. And so, again, there's a real common theme of we can get the projects going, but we got to have that extension cord to kind of plug it into the wall, if you will. And finally, on the CFPP, they continue to work with DOE and NuScale to get that closed out. I actually have a meeting with Mason this Friday that I'm curious to see if they've been able to get things finalized with DOE. Because otherwise we gotta extend one of the financing mechanisms to cover that because it goes to the end of March. So we're hoping to avoid that and the cost associated with that. So that's my general UAMPS report. Any questions? Okay, it's been busy. Yeah, again on the toolkit. And then just a reminder, next month I'm gonna be off playing with my family, so we won't have Power Board next month. Unless Jeremy wants to do it or Craig. So there'll be 2 of those this year that just worked out that way. So. Oh, good. Throw him into the fire. But that actually on the second one, that's a real possibility. That's all I have unless you got questions. How'd we do time wise? Oh, not too bad.
Any questions?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Okay. So if we have no meeting next month, so our next meeting will be May 6th. Okay. So the next meeting, so motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
So Mark did the first, Todd did the second. So Andy, would you start us on a vote?
Yes, Palmer, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
Andy, or Mark?
Hauser, aye.
Todd? Dinsmore, aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, everybody.